God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows.
Welcome to the 15th episode of Your Journey is Not Over. My name is Tanya Pearson Randolph. This is my own personal journey, and the expressions and opinions are of my own. I own all the rights to my personal journey and to Your Journey is Not Over, neither to be used, copied, or edited in any way without my consent. The rest of 1982 was pretty much the same, alone a lot except for when I went to my grandma's for the weekends. All of my cousins were getting older and driving, and of course knew I was always by myself. So from time to time, they would come by and get me. And we would go cruising, or I would go with them to visit their boyfriends. Always got me something to eat. Even though my mom thought it was a secret that I had no food, it wasn't. Everyone in the family knew. So grateful that my cousins jumped in and most likely used their allowances to make sure I ate. I will say I was blessed with loving, thoughtful older cousins. During this time, I had an older cousin that came and got me. She had a boyfriend with her. I loved him because he was always so funny. But this particular time, they came and got me, and we were riding around. I'm still quiet, but comfortable because of being the baby of our generation. My older cousins were always so protective of me. I think it's a Southern family thing, or it truly could be that way in every family. I don't know. I can only speak for mine, but everyone knew I was the baby, and I am naive and gullible. So much so that my nickname from my cousins became Ding Ding Vera from the show Mel's Diner. I still laugh every time I think of that. That's a nickname I love because it still best describes me. I see the world through different lenses than most. This one particular night, her boyfriend kept talking about his friend, whom was quiet and shy also, and that would make a great couple. Again, the guy, his friend, is 6 years older than me. Must be a magic number, huh? So my cousin was like, no way, being protective. So I never met his friend back then, but this is how God works. 8 years later, I did meet that friend that my cousin's boyfriend always brought up to me. And guess what? He became my best friend, and later on my husband and the father of my children. And our youngest daughter is in a sense named after what was my cousin's boyfriend. Who would have ever thought that, right? There's a reason, a season, a lesson, or a purpose, as I like to say, for every single person in your life. During this time, I was still talking to my brother's friends. He called almost every day, and every now and then, they would come and get me and go riding around. Always nice to get out. Looking back on it now, all these years later, my brother's friend was so kind and understanding that I developed an emotional attachment, a bond with him. During this time, I remember talking with him more than I talked to anyone, opening up to him more than anyone ever. I trusted him, and that was huge. When you grow up mentally, emotionally, physically, and sexually abused, believe me, you don't trust anybody from the outside, no matter how naive or gullible you are. So over time, I did trust him, his advice, his views. I also see now that he wanted me to talk about the abuse and the molestation in a healthy way. He didn't want me stuck or shamed for it. So, in fact, he is the very first person that I opened that up to ever. We had the best conversations on the phone and in person, always healthy and healing. He helped me see that nothing was my fault. Because believe it or not, no matter what age you are, in my case, I was 5 years old when I was first victimized and assaulted physically and sexually. Victims grow up because of generational cycles and the way it's been for generation after generation, thinking no matter what age, it was their fault. Of course, with me, the way my mom acted towards me and the things she said to me and what she did by bringing my molester to our apartment that night, of course, I believed it was my fault. It was my brother's friend who slowly got me to open up and talk about the trauma. Again, he was the first person I ever talked to openly about every single thing. Again, looking back at that period in my life, I'm so grateful because of him is the reason I can talk about it and have been able to talk about it openly for years. Was I healed from it? No, not until years later. But I could talk about it without feeling shame or embarrassed and knowing none of it was my fault at all. I did not deserve anything that was done to me. Now that it's all been explained to me by God Himself, I understand it even more so now. Every path was for a reason, a season, a lesson, or a purpose. And God wanted me to learn and speak up and speak out, change the way people have been conditioned to think and act and speak when it comes to abuse. Do I think it's ironic that this girl with no voice at all for years and years is the one God chose to speak publicly and openly about the most horrific parts of my life? Yes, I do. Believe me, that does not surpass me at all. God knew, of course, my path and my purpose long before I did. Of course, He did. He had it all planned out. Everything happens the way it's supposed to, even the bad. I now know God chose me to endure the trauma of a child born of horrible conditions so that I later on in life could talk openly and honest about it and hopefully pave the way for others to see their trauma, not as something that was done to them, but in fact, something God did for them to learn and heal and hopefully share with someone or make yourself relatable to someone else that may have or is enduring the same or similar abuse. I did not, of course, understand this as being my purpose either until April 16th, 2023. Even hearing God's voice and explanation and the understanding of my path, I in no way knew that I would be speaking out so publicly. When my husband was sick with his cancer, he kept telling me I should speak out, write a book. I say now he knew something I didn't. Of course, I would say, why should I write a book? Let me explain something to everyone. To me, this is just my life. It's things I had to endure and go through. Never once along my journey did I ever in a million years think I would publicly be speaking about the abuse that had caused me so much pain and shame and embarrassment. I'd gotten good at tucking it away, hiding it, and letting people see me the way they wanted to see me. Remember, I'm walking on sunshine. Nothing bad could have ever happened to me. I'm too loving, kind, and I'm way too confident for anything bad to have happened to me, right? Because of what I endured, I did become loving and kind and compassionate and confident as an adult because I know what it felt like to be scared, hurt, hungry, and abused. My heart does not want anyone to ever feel that way. Forgiveness gave me that kindness, that love and compassion for others. I've always said no matter what I go through, I won't let anything or anyone change me or how I view the world or how I love. I chose at an early age, and with the help of my brother's friend, to not let anything make me an angry or bitter person. Accept it, heal it, and move on. I've been told recently by my team that I must have gotten good at compartmentalizing and healing myself. I truly think all the time alone that I spent as a child gave me those skills. I had no one around to protect, nurture, or comfort me. I somehow mastered all of that at an early age. At a recent meeting with my team, I asked all kinds of questions. I guess I always do. I'm constantly checking on myself or my mental health. My last meeting, I was asking if I was detached from my trauma. Because believe it or not, I could not look at the two baby pictures of myself without crying before April 16th, 2023. If you know me personally, then you know how special babies and kids are to me. In fact, I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher growing up, but I couldn't even look at my own baby pictures without breaking down in tears and wanting to reach in the pictures and save that baby from everything that was to come. Now, those two pictures hang above my desk, and I look at them not with tears, but with lots of pride and love and compassion. And that it also took me 53 years to begin to save that little girl in them pictures. I was told I'm not detached, I'm healing. And I have God to thank for that. I'm so grateful. I was also told that I'm not healing to be able to handle all of my trauma, pain, anxiety, shame, or depression. I'm used to those emotions. I've done that my whole life. I'm healing to be able to handle and accept joy and happiness and a true unconditional love for myself and others. Yes, healing will take you to the darkest places of your soul, and literally through hell, God's way of shedding all of the damage, or as I say, imperfections. Again, my own little way of seeing things, okay? I have described it as an onion being peeled away, layer by layer, until there's that little centerpiece left. Once God strips all the layers back, then he starts to rebuild you, the healthy, healed version of you. Some would call it a rebirth, and essentially, that's what it is. The version of you that he intended for you to become, of course, after a life load of trauma, pain, and lessons. Now that I do have an understanding of everything, I know it wasn't done to me, it was done for me. If nothing else, the circumstances and the conditions I grew up in made me not want to give up and to try and make a better life for myself. Be a better person, be kinder, be more compassionate, try to become a good wife and a good mother. I didn't want to be anything like my mom. In fact, I fought really hard and was conscious of that very thing every single day, almost like what not to do because of her. So had I not experienced everything I did, would I be the person I am today? Only God knows the answer. But I will take a guess and say, no, probably not even close. Once you see a different perspective, my favorite word, and you truly think about it, even quietly to yourself, pick a trauma and think, what was I supposed to learn from that? God would not have allowed that to happen if I wasn't supposed to learn something from it. Without knowing I was essentially healing myself, I was doing this years ago. Never a why. Remember, I don't ask God that question. I've always said, I don't understand. Please help me to understand. I understand everything now. We are taught people come into our lives for a reason, a season, a purpose, or a lesson, right? Well, couldn't the same be said about trauma? This concludes my podcast for today. Please join me Thursday, and always remember, your journey is not over. God bless.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been